Now our identity server is up and running, but we don't have any data inside the database. So how about we seed our database with some test user? We want to create two roles as we saw inside the static details file right here. We want admin and customer. So let's first create these two roles and then create two users for both of these roles. We can use user manager and role manager with the help of dependency injection to seed data. So for that, inside our identity project, let me create a new folder and I will call this initializer. Inside that, we will be adding interface first. That will be IDB initializer. That will be a public interface and it will have one method, public void initialize. Let's create a class db initializer here. And that will implement the IDB initializer. We will implement the method that we created in there. Now here we will be working with the database directly, so we will need the DB context and we will need the user manager and role manager using dependency injection. So first will be private read-only application DB context. We'll call this underscore DB. Next we want private read-only user manager. Here we have to define a class TUser. That we know it is application user. We'll call this underscore user manager. Lastly, I want private read-only role manager and this will be on T row. We are using the default role, so we will say identity role here underscore role manager. Let me get all three of these using dependency injection. You can see inside the configure services, we are injecting them in DB context, and when we add the identity, we have application user and identity user. So we can extract them here and perform operations. We will create a constructor, retrieve all three of those, and assign them to our local variables. Then inside the initialize method, we will check if role manager dot find by name async, is there a role with the name of static detail dot admin? If that result is equal to null, this means that the role does not exist in the database and we are running this for the very first time. If this is the first time, let's seed the database. So role manager dot create async will create a role, but here we have to pass a new identity role. What role we want to create? We want to create the admin role. Now if you notice, this is an async method. If we just use it like that, it won't work. We have to wait till the execution completes here. So we will call getAwaiter.getResult. That will make sure that the role is created before it moves ahead with the next line. We want to create both the roles for admin as well as customer. Now if the roles already exist, we will just return back and we will not proceed further. But if they did not exist, we will create the roles and then we will create two users, one for admin and one for customer. So we can create an application user object here. We will call this as admin user is equal to new application user. And then right here, let me set 4 properties for username, email, email confirmed, and phone number. A common application would require more properties, like let's say we want to store first name and last name. So let me do that so that you can also see how that works with identity server. So we have string first name as well as last name. Let's add those migration. I'll call this add first and last name to user. Our build failed because of the error in DB initializer. Let me try that one more time. And perfect. Let me update the database. Perfect. So now in our database, we have two more properties. So we can assign those here as well. First name is equal to Ben, and last name, let me call that as admin. Then we will use user manager.create async to create the user, admin user, and password we will set as admin123 star. On this we will be using getAwaiter.getResult because this is an async method. Once the user gets created, we have to assign this user the role of admin. So user manager.add to role async. We want to assign our admin user the role of sd.admin. We will call the getAwaiter.getResult. Perfect. So our first user has been created. Once we create the user, you can see that there is also ASP.NET user claims table. We can add some values to that user claims. So next time when that user logs in, identity will fetch all the claims and pass it for our authentication. So using our user manager, we have method add claims async. We want more than one, so we will use the claims. We will pass admin user, and then we will have an array of claim. This is inside system.security.claims, and we will create all the claims that we want to store. So we will have a new claim here. You can either write your custom name or you can use the existing ones inside JWT claim types. We have the name. This one will be admin.firstname plus we'll add a space here and we'll say admin.lastname. We will copy this and paste it one more time. The next one, let me just do first name. In claim types, we have a constant for given name. Copy this, paste it again for the family name. And finally, I will add an important one, which is the role, and that will be sd.admin. Perfect. So we have added all of the claims, and we will call the dot result on that, store that in a temp variable. This looks good for our first user. Let's do the same for our next user as well. So we will copy this all together, paste it one more time here. Next one, we'll call this as customer user. And I will change the email to customer1. Last name will be cust here. Password, we'll keep it the same. Variable temp2, we create that and we add everything, just the role will be customer. So perfect, we are seeding our database with the user and their corresponding roles. So with that, our initializer method looks good. Let's configure that it runs every time inside the startup. So we will add our services. We will add a scoped reference of the IDB initializer, comma, DB initializer. And then when we have the configure method here, we will get the IDB initializer as DB initializer. And right here, we will call DB initializer.initialize method. That will invoke our method that we created every time, but it will execute all the code only if the role of admin does not exist, which will be the first time. So let's run our application and see what happens. And we run into an error message. The reason for this error is when we are creating the next user, we should be using customer user and not admin user. We forgot to change that in all the places. Once you change that, we will have to run this one more time. But if you go to database and if you check the ASP.NET users, table will be populated. So we will have to remove everything. So we'll say delete from, execute, perfect. Let's also delete the rows. And let's also delete the ASP.NET user claims. Nothing was inserted, so we are good. Perfect. Once you do that, let's run this application one more time. Perfect. Let's go to database and examine the tables. We will examine the role table. Perfect, looks good. ASP.NET users table. We have both of the users that have been created, and ASP.NET user roles table. Both of them has the same role ID. That is not good. Let's see what happened here. And accidentally we assigned our customer the role of admin as well. So we'll have to fix that as well. It's annoying, but you have to make sure that you get it right. So let me delete everything again. And we will have to rerun the application. Let's examine our database one more time. Okay, so ASP.NET users looks good. Roles looks good. User roles, perfect. Both of them have different roles, so this is great. So with this, our database has been populated.